In fact, that was honestly on mushrooms when I was 16 years old was the first time I encountered God. I would see me almost the way God sees me or source sees me or the reality of who I actually am. Welcome to Sacred Not Saved, a space for the curious, the deconstructing, the mystics, and the misfits.
I wish they also got to witness you in that too, because
Sure. I do too. I wish that somehow people could see how the devotional path that I chose with the Lord is what I would, I no longer use that term anymore, but I used to call him Papa, and I still do when I need. That's what's so beautiful about this season is that, and this might sound so taboo, but God can be anything I need him or it to be. He's unoffendable. And
right.
so there's times where I'm like, I need you to be my dad today. I need you to be Papa God like you were to me for all of those years. I need that. I need to picture love source like that. Yeah. And it's just, yet most of the time, there's so much oneness. I mean, my reality has has changed, and we have merged into one. We've always been, I- you know, you can frame it up like we've merged into one, but in reality, it's more the layers of deception, the layers
Mhm.
of separation that I was taught and that I put on between me and God have fallen away. And so now it's like the closer you get, the the you're like, oh, we're the same. We're one. I'm not saying I am God. I'm not saying I'm the God. I'm not saying I'm the source of all love and life, but we are that united. Like we're there's no separation. When you see me, you see the Father. That's what Jesus said, right? Yeah.
Yep. You're an ocean in a drop of water, right?
Yes. Yep. And a drop of water in the ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same. Yeah, it's funny. The journey that I went on with psilocybin on
Hmm.
my own, it was my first adult journey because that was my favorite thing to do um when I was a teenager. In fact, that was honestly on mushrooms when I was 16 years old was the first time I encountered God.
I believe
Like
it.
God's voice, it was familiar. I was like, "Oh, there you are. I remember. Oh my
Yep.
gosh." And the feeling of the knowing, it wasn't just a feeling, the knowing of being one with God, being one with the trees, the path that I was walking on. Um, it was pure bliss. It was like, oh, this is what life is. This is it. This is it. And that doesn't mean that we need to be on mushroom. No.
No, but it's an encapsulated experience of the vastness of life and the divine and all of it with the framework shed,
Yes.
right? With
Yes.
with the duality and the judgment and the construct.
It was gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was gone.
Yeah.
All layers of separation were gone.
Yeah.
And I was so loved and so accepted. And there was no right or wrong. There
Yeah.
was no good or bad. There was just, it just is, right? And
Yep.
so that, like I said, when I was a teenager, that's what was I loved mushrooms. And, and then I unfortunately had because I was not using them in the sacred space, and then there's no judgment to people who use it for recreation. But
Mhm.
for me, I think my soul knew that it wasn't right to use it. Like for me, that's just not my truth to
Sure.
use plant medicine for recreation. So I had a really bad trip one night where it was prom night. I don't know if I ever told you about that.
I don't think so.
I didn't.
I don't think so.
Oh my
Mm-mm.
gosh. Okay, so like I said, loved I had marijuana was readily available in this season of my life. Other things, that I would white powder that I would snort and but I loved psilocybin and I made sure I had plenty for prom night. And I wasn't taught that you should measure it out. I just ate them.
Yeah.
I just like, oh, and I want to say, I don't know.
Let alone being aware of what strain you have and the
I
potency.
knew nothing. Nobody
Yeah,
ever told me. I basically, minus a needle, I basically did whatever anybody put in front of me. And that's a story for another time, obviously. But
sure.
um, so yeah, prom night, I had this beautiful dress and the shoes and going out, I went with a friend. There was four of us and had a fun time. I think I mixed alcohol with it, and so it was just towards the end of the night, I just was kind of, ooh, it was a lot for my system, but I was still having a good time. But then it hit me, oh shit, I have to go home
Mm,
to mom and dad, and hopefully they'll be in bed. Well, I didn't know that Jana was having a sleepover with a friend that night. And so everybody was up, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, hoping that mom and dad would have totally been in bed by then.
sure.
Nope. So when you're tripping, like, and you're using it for recreational purposes, you're leaving yourself open to a lot of energies that you're not
You
prepared to
are vulnerable.
experience.
You are
Yeah.
vulnerable. Yep.
And so I walked in and it instantly, well, just walking up to the door, it just instantly hit me and everything shifted and it started. And I was like, oh my God, the panic. And so I tried to like sneak to my room and mom's like, "Hi Joy, did you have a good time?" "Yeah, it was a great time." Yeah. And I was pretty avoidant at this point in my life in this season of my teenage years, fairly rebellious and avoidant. So that wasn't anything uncommon with mom. And then I'm like, okay, but it had already triggered. It had already triggered this cascade of emotions and chemicals and messed with my brain a little bit. And I'm just sitting in there going, okay, calm down, Joy, calm down. I take my dress off and I get in my comfy clothes and mom knocks on my door. And I'm sure my eyes were like bloodshot and we probably smoked weed that night too. And and I opened the door and the paranoia sets in. And she's like, "Hey, Jana and I think Mary was spending the night. Jana and Mary want to see you in your dress." I'm like, "Oh, I already took it off." And she's like, "Joy, and I don't know why I said yes, but I put the dress back on. I came out in my shoes and I'm like, I can hardly stand up at this point. I'm like, just hold it together, Joy, just hold it together. And I did the twirl. Oh, it's so pretty and all the things. And I'm like, okay, you got it? All right, awesome. Okay, bye. Went back to my room. I was left alone that night. Nobody bothered me after that. But God, this trip lasted so long and I need to fall asleep. I mean, at this point it's like 3 a.m. Everybody else is asleep. The house is dark and I'm in my room and if I were to, I mean, it I must have mixed a lot of things because if I were to I got to the point where if I were to keep my eyes open, the walls were closing in on me. And
Okay.
I literally thought I was going to be crushed. And the walls were closing in. If I closed my eyes, this might sound really strange, but my consciousness would fly through my body. It would go down my legs, into my feet, and then up and then down through my arms. And it was a chaotic roller coaster within
Frenzy.
it that
Yeah.
was almost making me want to vomit. And I'm just like, I'm so uncomfortable. But beyond I was I was terrified. And I remember going, I need help. I need help. I'm crying at this point. I need help. And unfortunately, the setup with mom and dad was not a learning setup. It wasn't a space where it's like, let the natural consequences be what they would be. It was more, oh, you basically fucked up. Royally fucked up. And it is what you have caused on yourself is so painful. And guess what we're gonna do? We're gonna make sure you don't do it again. So we're gonna tack on
Right.
massive we're gonna take
Not
freedoms away.
not even acknowledging the internal consequences of any given. And man, I wish I had been given a roadmap or some kind of even an awareness of the
Yeah,
concept of internal consequences, right?
of course. Yeah.
And good and bad, right?
Good
Like
and bad. Sure. And learning and
an
just the
awareness.
idea. Go ahead.
Oh, just an awareness of that, right?
Yeah, and just the idea that life we're here to learn. That
Hmm.
concept, like actually like making mistakes and learning from them,
Hmm.
um, and basically holding and we weren't our hands weren't held necessarily to say to prepare for adulthood.
Right.
Like, hey, one day you're not going to have parents who are going to ground you and take everything away and take the door off your take your door off its hinges.
Hmm.
Whatever. Take your pager away. Gosh, that dates me. Um, but you're going to have just natural internal, like you said, internal consequences. You're going to have relational consequences with people you're choosing to do life with. You're going to have consequences at your job, like all the things, right? I was so and then just the judgment, like the scowls that especially from dad, just the I mean, just the seething. A seething is the best word I can come up with, the seething disappointment. It was almost like hatred or rage or something that like it was just pure
Res-
disgust.
Resentment. Yeah.
Yeah, which I now know is it was his shadow from how he sees himself, of course, but I didn't. Obviously, at 16, I didn't know that. And I knew I had fucked up. I knew I had made a mess. I had learned my lesson. So much so that obviously I didn't touch psilocybin till I was 42 years old.
Oh,
Like
that did it.
that did it for me. So it was consequence in itself, right? But I'm laying there and I'm picturing myself waking mom and dad up saying, I need you. And I knew at least this was my reality. I don't know because I didn't try, right? But the story I told myself was I knew I would be shamed. I would be looked upon as dirty. I'd be looked at
Condemned.
what?
Condemned.
Condemned. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the condemnation, that was too heavy for me. You talk about your inner world and how it was scary growing up and deep and shameful. And it's like, yeah, I know. I already know that I made a mess. And I knew that they would just heap condemnation. I was already condemning myself. I knew that they would just heap condemnation on me
Yeah.
and then give me massive consequences because that season I was pretty rebellious. I was
Sure.
borderline high school dropout. It's not a proud season of mine. So I had decided that the only way to make this stop was to unalive myself. And I had decided that, okay, if it doesn't stop soon, I have to make this stop. I have to make it go away.
The torment.
Yeah, it was tormenting. Yeah. And thank God I didn't. Thank God it slowly subsided. I think that was the first time ever that I actually thought like seriously about taking that
Yeah.
action. But yeah, so anyway, that's the story of my last experience with psilocybin. And so learning more about it in this awakening process and having friends who would microdose and who would had very healing journeys
Mhm.
with this plant medicine. I started microdosing for cognitive reasons and for nervous system reasons, and it was really helpful. So I did that for months, and then I'm like, you know what? I think it's time. I think it's time to. And I at this time, I don't even think I had deconverted yet. So I was still like, I'm like, okay, God, God held my hand through all of it, and I was like really aware of the timing and is the timing right? And so I told my housemate, who she was going through the same experience as me. We had gone to school together, so she was going through her dark night of the soul. It was an interesting season with us both. We were deep in it together, and yet, yeah, it was wild. I told
Yeah.
her, "Hey, I'm going to be doing this, so just just don't worry if you hear anything from the bedroom." I knew I wanted to do it alone.
Yeah.
I had just decided, I felt like God said, just do it in your bed, like just like under the covers, just in darkness and just go within and I'll be there with you the whole time. I that morning I woke up and I did a check, an internal, because I had learned to trust my inner guidance. I had learned to trust myself and I had learned to tap into like drop into my body and know my nervous system. And I scanned my body for any fear. I'm like, I do not want to go into this with any fear. So if there's any residual fear from that time when I was 16, I will not go through with this. And I did that scan and I found some fear. There was just a little bit and I'm like, okay. And that's the self-love journey too. It's like, okay, I'm going to honor you. I'm going to honor that. And I'm going to hold space for you, fear, right? that part of me that was still scared, right? And still maybe traumatized from that. And so I held space for her. And throughout that week, we processed it and we worked it out. And that following Saturday, I I went through with it. And that journey, John, that journey was the most powerful experience I have ever had in my entire life. The layer, and I know you can relate to this, the layers of what would come up. Now I was under my covers in the dark, right?
Mhm.
And I was in awe of love. I all I felt was love. And all I was my body was experiencing love, my mind, my consciousness. I was so present and yet in so many different places all at once. And I was in the cosmos and but I was here and I was this ball of light that was me and it was the essence of who I was and the the layers. So what would I would see me almost the way God sees me or source sees me or the reality of who I actually am. I would see that and then something would come up like, yeah, but and then I would see it as like a layer and that would just peel, like literally peel away to go, oh my gosh, that's actually the truth. Not this, but this. And then I'd go, and then another, yeah, but like it was questions. It was like doubts. It
Yeah.
was, nah, it can't be this good. Love can't be this good, right? God can't be this good. And then once again, that layer would peel away and I'd be like, "Oh," and all, excuse my language, but I've already, all I could do is lay in there and every time I like, fuck, fuck, I was just like, Oh my gosh, that was the only word I can, and I have learned that that is a very liberating word, not to throw around in daily language unless you want to. That's fine, but um it's powerful. And I had just reacquired like allowing myself to curse or to swear, you know. I
Yeah.
tried to be the good Christian girl and not do that. And so um and that's all I could do, and just layer after layer until there was absolutely no separation. Until that ball of light was all that there was. God, me, the universe, everything. That's all there was. It was, yeah, it was just uh that I think was foundational for what I needed to know. I don't know a lot anymore. You know, I used to in Christianity, I'd be like, well, this, I had entire chapters of scripture memorized. I had an answer, you know, when Paul or now I don't even remember who wrote the which I could have told you back then. But you know, in
Sure.
the Bible it says, make sure you have an answer, right? Oh, I took that seriously. Make sure I have an answer for what I believe and why I believe it. And so I did. And you know, you knew me back then. I did. I had answers.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of certainty back then, but and so I don't have a lot of certainty now. But those experiences and that journey that I went on was foundational to my truth and my certainty and my relationship with the divine and with God.
Mm-hmm.
It was magical. It was just something that and it's interesting as I walk this road of remembering, I actually have moments and I'm able to walk. It's not quite so explosive,
Sure.
but I am able to walk in that reality of oneness. There is no separation.
Yeah.
That's it's crazy.
It's that's definitely an ineffable experience that
Yes. Yeah.
if you know, you know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for joining us. Remember, you don't need saving. You're already sacred. Until next time, stay wild.